What's going on, great people in all of the world? I'm your host, Nicholas Wilcox, alongside my co-host, partner in crime, cousin from another mother, Johnny Main. Johnny, say what's up to the great people.
What's going down? Happy Super Bowl Sunday. Glad to be here this Sunday morning, bringing it to you live here with obviously my cousin Nick Wilcox, and getting ready to get into Super Bowl 59 from New Orleans without my GOAT Lil Wayne performing at the halftime show. But needless to say, still should be entertaining halftime show and hopefully an entertaining game for all of us football fans out there.
I mean, let's hope it ends in a tie. I mean,
Oh man, I love it.
Triple overtime, maybe.
Oh, well, listen, didn't we almost had one of those a few years ago. I think wasn't it this one right here?
I thought that was conference championship between the Chiefs and the Bills several years back.
No, actually, it might have been last year. But either way, man, I know we had one
several years back.
Whatever. Yeah. But nonetheless, man, definitely hoping for a good game. Obviously, man, we'll give you our insights and our tracks on it, man. I mean, for me, it almost felt like it was going to be kind of a slow one, but I think we might be in for a bit of a surprise.
I think we are too. I think when you have both of these teams that are just that good, you're gonna see a bunch of different things where you probably haven't seen all season. Just like looking over everything on paper, everything looks like it's equal for the most part. There's things that you'll see from a statistical standpoint. We'll break those down, but in terms of both of these teams, like mano a mano, these are the two best teams I think in the NFL going into the Super Bowl. I think people were disappointed that the Lions didn't get there. I think people are disappointed that we're seeing the Chiefs one more time. But look, I mean, from a wide spectrum of things coming into this game, like you can't knock these two teams like for whatever reason. Like people are gonna say first thing people are gonna go to is the Chiefs, referees, this. They're gonna talk about that the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, and it's like kind of annoying. But I mean, look, is it the referees playing to how are they playing for them, or is it just ways the Chiefs are playing that they draw these flags as well? So there's that. But on the Eagles side of things, like, look, man, you got a behemoth of a team.
Yeah.
Talking about best offensive line in the league, talking about one of the best running backs in all of the league. And look, man, this is going to be a great game in terms of X's and O's, in terms of like strategy. Because whose strategy is going to prevail is really like what I'm looking forward to seeing. Because both of these teams have been nonstop for how they've been doing their strategies all year long.
I think one of the things, man, like just kind of talking through it is like, this isn't your traditional offenses that you're used to seeing. And I think like over the last 4 to 5 years, like we've gotten, or even over the last 10 years, honestly, man, like we've gotten kind of spoiled in terms of like the offenses that we've seen in progressing it in the playoffs and being in the Super Bowl as far as high flying offenses and, teams that put up points. And both of these teams, obviously Philadelphia has the individual skill set of play, the individual skilled players to be able to put up those type of points. But just their play this year, as you mentioned, man, their offensive line just really playing into their strength. And, we talked about it a lot during the offseason. This was kind of the play for the Philadelphia Eagles, was to let Saquon Barkley bring them to this place, keep Jalen Hurts healthy, although he was a little dinged up going into the NFC Championship game. Didn't look like it in that game by any stretch of the imagination, but that was kind of the play. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, again, going into the offseason or going into the season, you thought with Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, you would have thought that like this was an offense that was going to be, it was going to be another track meet offense for the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid. And, due to injuries, it ended up not being that way. And they just found ways to win games all year long. Patrick Mahomes is kind of entering that second phase. I'll compare it to Tom Brady, the second phase of Tom Brady's career, where he was a better real life football player than he was a fantasy football player or a number producer. I think Patrick Mahomes is officially into that stage right now. And they're just finding ways to win football games. So I think from a commercial standpoint, right, I think it might not be exciting for the commercial fans, but I think for football purists, people that really enjoy the game and know the game like that, I think this is probably going to be one of the better Super Bowls that we're going to see. As you mentioned, from like a strategy side of things, you have two defensive coordinators really in Spags and Vic Fangio, who have been head coaches in the NFL. Right. And like obviously I mean, you even look at Matt Nagy. Obviously, he was a head coach at one point in time for the Chicago Bears. So I think, man, like you said, like this is a really good game, or should be a really good game anyway. When you look at it from a strategy perspective and the X's and O's. So I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited to see, what shakes down, but we'll get into it and we'll break it down a little bit further than that, man.
Sure. Well, without further ado, we got the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are a -1.5 favorites on a neutral site in New Orleans. Technically, they are the home team, technically. But there's a neutral site game. And there's some things in this game that looking forward to breaking down, where this is going to be just a game like we are just talking about, just an X and O's tit for tat of a game of wits as well. Ideally, both of these teams' defensive coordinators are pretty much identical. Fangio and Spagnuolo. We all know Spagnuolo on defense wants to dial up blitz on third down, but the Eagles have been really stellar when it comes to offensive third downs. And, this is where we're getting to the matchups, but also keys of the game. So without further ado, keys to the game, we'll break down along with some matchups in between those. So first thing that comes up is time possession. So Eagles on average hold the football 33 minutes per game. So what does that do to an offense? Well, if you don't score quickly, you'll have less possessions. So I think we've talked about this all season, and we talked about it on several different occasions when it comes to this team. And the concern for the Eagles coming into the playoffs for me was that the passing game wasn't going to take flight enough. We just talk about the statistic of time possession, and you have the best offensive line probably in the game is the Eagles. People will argue the Lions as well. But both of those teams in general have great offensive lines. They know how to, run the football very extremely efficiently well. And are able to, again, like take over ball games and shorten the game for the other team for less possessions. So this is, in my opinion, this is how you beat Patrick Mahomes. This is how you beat an elite QB, giving them less possessions, less time, and forcing them to speed up their own game because of how less possessions they'll have.
It's ironic that you say that, because I think it's the same thing when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs as well. I think, one of the things for me, right, is like, what do you want to do? Like, you want to keep Saquon Barkley off the field and you want to kind of take him out, like as far as game script. But one of the knocks on Saquon has been, or I shouldn't say knocks, or one of the things that people have always kind of talked about is his ability in the passing game. And like, I think you've seen it a few times over the course of the regular season that he can be involved in the passing game and he can take it to the house, in the receiving game. So I think it's a very similar process for the Kansas City Chiefs, where they want to be methodical and they want to keep this offense off the field. So again, you have, both teams who are kind of looking at a very similar strategy. And man, you mentioned it, right? Like, the Eagles have held the ball 33 minutes per game. The reason why they've done that and how they've done that is just obviously being able to knock people in the mouth and wear them down, right? Like, they've been able to do that. And, one of the things like we haven't really seen is like, obviously the passing volume, which you don't have to throw the ball. Like, if you're getting 6-7 yards a clip, every time you run the ball. So I think this will definitely be an interesting piece right here. But then you also have to turn it over and look at that Kansas City Chiefs defense and Chris Jones and those guys, right? That's a very, very stout defensive line. This might be one of the first times all year long where you see Saquon Barkley not, averaging 6, 7, 8 yards a clip. He might be more realistic about, 4 or 5 yards, which is obviously still a really good clip for any running back. So I think this is absolutely, to your point, Nick, this is a really key stat to see. And if the Eagles are able to, to even come close to this number right here, they'll obviously have a chance to win this game today.
Yeah, totally. That I mean, in general, we'll talk about things that in general impact a football game, but it's in terms of like how these teams execute those as well. Um, Third downs are going to be really important, obviously, in any football game. But in terms of how the Eagles' third down defense, they've been struggling, allowing 44% for first downs all season. So the Eagles do struggle on third down to get off the field. The Chiefs, on the other hand, second best at converting third downs this season. So, and to the other side of things, the Eagles are top 10 in terms of converting third downs as well offensively. So, I mean, look, games are going to come down to those things, third downs, like how often you're going to stay on the field. That intertwines with time of possession. So if I convert third downs, I'm able to keep my offense longer on the field. So, I mean, that's kind of, football 101. Yeah. But I think in terms of how both of these teams do so, this is going to be one of the keys to the game for me, because converting third downs keeps the momentum going, keeps you from punting, keeps you from your defense staying on the sideline as well. So there's that. In terms of turnovers, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, man, I think like just another call out about like the Eagles and struggling defensively on third down, and I think this is something to talk about as far as just the actual game today itself is, there's a lot of young players on the field for the Eagles today on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's something that we got to pay attention to, and we got to keep an eye on. And like Patrick Mahomes, say whatever you want to say about the refs or whatever, but Patrick Mahomes has just had a history anyway of just breaking people's back on third down, a la Tom Brady in his heyday. So like to see this right here, like that's absolutely something that could sway the momentum one way or another for the chefs and Patrick Mahomes on third down offensively.
Totally. This is where it leads to my next point as well. And obviously turnovers play a role, but both of these teams don't turn over the football. Yeah. It's pretty remarkable how these teams don't turn the ball over like how you would probably see another team. Yeah. It's just that's where another thing where it's like both of these teams coming into this game, like we're talking about, besides the fumble against the Bills this past week, the Chiefs had gone 8 straight games without turnover. And then the Eagles since week 5 are plus 27 in turnover margin, meaning that their defense has gotten 34 turnovers and their offense has only given 7 turnovers. So it's kind of wild that yeah. So are we expecting turnovers in this game? No, but I think whoever gets an opportunity to get a turnover in this game may have a distinct advantage based on it may, because sometimes turnover battle consistently doesn't always lead to a winner. It does play a role depending on how that turnover does impact. Like if I turn over the ball within my 30-yard line on my own 30 and you get a turnover, like that's should be points on the board based on
or just flat out pick 6 or a scoop and score,
Yeah, like it all depends on that when that turnover kind of happens. But I'll be interested to see if a turnover does happen, whoever gets it, depending on where it is. Doesn't mean the other team's out of doesn't mean the other team doesn't have an opportunity, but it does play a role because both of these teams don't turn over the football. Next, 27% of the Chiefs pass plays have been behind the line of scrimmage. Talk about 156 passes. The Eagles, number 1 in defending that behind the line of scrimmage, allowing 4.1 yards per catch. This is where I think if statistically and game flow wise, the reason why this has been working for the Chiefs, because you've had missing pieces throughout the whole year, right? Majority, a good amount of this probably earlier in the season as well, but you consistently build upon this because you didn't have as many field stretchers. Like we talked about earlier, Rashee Rice was done after week 6 or whatever. Hollywood Brown wasn't there until week 14, 15 regular season. So a lot of the times Chiefs would have to check the ball down. And that's where, again, people talk about the Chiefs haven't been as explosive, this, that, and the third this year, whatever, and stuff like that. And sometimes, when you have something working like this, it pans out for you. So I think in this game, from my point of view, I think I'll look to see if the Chiefs are going to air the ball out a little bit more. Just because you need to you need like a bigger play downfield to open this up, whether it be Worthy, whether it be Marquise Brown, whether it be, even DeAndre Hopkins, even Travis Kelce. Like, one of these guys got to make a big splash play, or a big yards after the catch here, even though the Eagles are, number one defending that, and the reason why is because this Eagles defensive line constantly gets their hands up, constantly gets a great pass rush. And the reason also why, and it's probably the biggest point, is that the Chiefs offensive line has not been, as great as it been in previous years.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that too, in terms of matchup. But yeah, the offensive line for the Chiefs have been inconsistent. They've retooled this thing constantly throughout the year. Turley now left tackle, like there's other moves that, the Chiefs have made on this offensive line, which makes it partially why the statistic has been, into fruition throughout the whole year.
Yeah, again, like we've seen it before. Like, we've seen it with Tom Brady, we've seen it with Ben Roethlisberger. The quick passing game to get the ball out of these guys' hands, just to kind of relieve them and not make it so that, like, hey, they have to absorb hits, they have to take hits, and just to move the change, right? Because Patrick Mahomes, as we talk about, like, very rarely is he going to make the big mistake and turn the football over. So, and this also too, man, Andy Reid, like, let's just kind of keep going with this, man. Like, Andy Reid has also had a history of like this West Coast hybrid quick passing game with all the quarterbacks that he's ever had, as a coach. So, like, this, while all those things are all true, I don't think it's necessarily like a mind-blowing stat for me. I think, like, the numbers to see it and to see, like, where they rank, like that part is, but just it being a part of his DNA and who he's been. There's that. And then, like, we're talking about this, and we were kind of talking about it before we came on the show. Like, don't be surprised if you see that screen game today, with the running backs, right? With P-Ron and some of those players. So again, like, not shocked. And I think it's just another way, man, to potentially gas that aggressive Philadelphia defensive line.
Yeah. I mean, and that's partially why also, like, this is why it gets effective, because it's your short game. If it's really effective, like, takes a good defensive line or a good pass rush sometimes out of the game, neutralizes it a little bit. Because sometimes that pass rush is still going to get there, but it also helps out your offensive line. You know what I'm saying? It helps out, your game plan. So, no, it's not shocking that they've done this throughout the year, but it's more about how the Eagles have defended this throughout the whole year at a very best clip. Chiefs allowing 16th most passing yards this season, 233 yards per game defensively.
So, like, yeah, like, for me with this one right here, man, I think this one, I seen this stat and I'm like, okay, like, this is going to be interesting, because this is going to be more about how the Chiefs decide to go about defending the Philadelphia Eagles, which I think we all know that more likely than not, they are going to want to slow down Saquon Barkley. So if you're going to do that, now you're opening it up one-on-one on the outside with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And on top of that as well, the Chiefs haven't been really good against tight ends or the slot as well. So I think, talking about, you're kind of talking about Jalen Hurts and, the passing game and things like that right there. Don't be surprised if he comes out and absolutely, I'm not going to say blows the top off, but, like, whatever his prop is, don't be surprised if he smashes that prop. Because I think the Philadelphia Eagles, if they're going to win this game, Jalen Hurts is going to have to do it as a passer, because I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to attempt to allow Saquon Barkley to get going and then not be able to defend all avenues of the field. So I expect to see a lot of single coverage out there today, which is definitely it's scary hours. The Chiefs and scary hours out there. It's scary hours out there for sure. And then, like, AJ Brown, obviously, he hasn't had one of those monster games, but if you go back and I think looking at the last Super Bowl, I feel like he had, like, I don't know if it was 7 for 76 or 7 for 96, but him and Devontae Smith both had really good games the last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl. I know a lot of things have changed, obviously, personnel, coaching, and whatnot. But still, like, those two pieces still remain, the experience there. So, like, I definitely look for Jalen Hurts to have a pretty solid day in the passing game. today, with the Chiefs obviously allowing 233 yards a game.
Yeah, I think it was like some stat against the Chiefs that I think it was a stat that him and Devontae Smith averaged like 168 yards receiving between the 3 games they played, something like that against the Chiefs. And we'll have to reference that, but
Yeah,
I definitely agree. And this leads you to your next point when it comes to the slide to tight ends, especially in terms of Chiefs giving up the most receiving yards to tight ends during the regular season, second most receptions.
Yeah, like we tried to attack this.
Are
last
you on
week.
Dallas Goedert? Is that your boy again?
I'm back, baby. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back, man. I'm back. I'm back. I am back. We tried to go after this. We tried to go after this a couple of weeks ago in the AFC championship game in regards with Dalton Kincaid, and obviously he didn't come through for us, but obviously now different scenario, right? Dallas Goedert, not elite but really stable. He's been playing really good football coming down the stretch here. So there's that piece of it, and then like we talked about, like, hey, are they Grant Calcaterra? He's somebody that when Dallas Goedert has been out, he's played really well. And even when Dallas Goedert has been there, like, he's still been somebody that has played some pretty good football. So I like both of those plays today in whatever respect, as far as like their reception prop or the yardage prop, which Grant Calcaterra, I think his reception prop is literally a yard. So like I feel that's one of the ones that I'll be messing with for sure. But again, like if the Chiefs are going to be if they're not going to be able, if they're going to be there for Saquon Barkley, then this is absolutely going to be a place where the tight ends can eat. So again, for the Chiefs, it's about picking their poison and just naturally, right? Like, I think the things we're talking about, they obviously know, right? So I think for me, it'll be really interesting to see what their approach will be in regards to the tight ends or just the pass catchers here today for the Eagles, but definitely a big opportunity for all of the Eagles pass catchers today. And by default, if that's a big opportunity for the, for the pass catchers in regards to making plays and having some catches, obviously that should translate to a pretty good day for Jalen Hurts.
Totally. Definitely. I think this linebacker core for the Chiefs are really nice, but like you said, they give up a ton of things to the slot tight ends in the middle of the field, which most of the time I think the Chiefs have lived with, because it's better than giving up the deep play down the field. It's better than giving up a gash of a run play. Like, I think if that's where they're getting attacked the most, I think they'll live with that, with Dallas Goedert trying to take advantage of them, maybe Devontae Smith versus A.J. Brown down the field. So that makes a ton of sense. Eagles give up the second fewest passing yards per game this regular season, 192 yards per game. This Eagles defense, we talked about them in terms of their defense. Like, when we talk about Quinyon Mitchell and we're talking about Cooper DeJean, the rookie corners have made a stellar impact throughout the whole year in terms of just playing great defense and allowing, them holding, certain receivers back, allowing that pass rush for Philly, Jalen Carter, stuff like that, to get in the mix. Like, it's been a proven success plan for Vic Fangio, who doesn't blitz a ton. So that's where, again, they're getting there with their pass rush. They're letting their Darius Slays and stuff like that hold guys long enough to get coverage sacks at times too. So I mean, this makes a ton of sense. Patrick Mahomes, in terms of this game, like, the defense for the Eagles has been great. I just think, though, if it comes down to it, like, Mahomes has just been Mahomes, man. Like, he has looked so stellar in terms of clutch gene. So, I mean, to say that Mahomes, I think his line's 252 right now for passing, like, that is a little bit more tighter versus what the Eagles have allowed. So I'll be interested to see, but I don't know if 250. I don't know. I mean, this could be a game that could go back and forth, especially if all of a sudden Chiefs are in throw mode and they got to keep on throwing. This could be a possibility where this statistic could not shatter them per se, but it's like, it's still Patrick Mahomes, it's still the Super Bowl, so it's like biggest game of the year. Like, I don't know if they're gonna hold Mahomes like under 200 yards.
I don't think they're gonna hold him to 192 yards, right? Because like we said, like, Mahomes, the fact of the matter is, like, he's going to make the smart play and he's going to move the chains. That's what it's going to be. It's not about the explosive plays and the risky plays. For him, he's just going to take what the defense is going to give him.
Gotta get one this game. gonna have to at least get one in this game to open things up for them. Absolutely. So
yeah, well, I mean, like, definitely so, but I think, like, you know, not to like jump the gun or anything, like Travis Kelce coming off the performance that he just had against the Buffalo Bills, man. Like you gotta know that, like, hey man, like it's gonna be a Travis Kelce game, like, for sure. And like there's a couple of random stats like I'll throw out there about Travis Kelce as well as it's actually kind of crazy, man. He's I think 207 yards away from tying Jerry Rice for the all-time playoff receiving record, and I think he's 3 touchdowns off as well from that same record, man. So Travis Kelce, not to say that he's going to go out and go for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns today, but you know, again, like just to kind of put it in perspective, like that's how great he's been in the playoffs. And I think we've seen this last year, and I you know, talked about it a little bit earlier. Like he plays possum all year long during the regular season, and now, you know, he comes to play. So I think, yeah, to your point, man, I think this has just been, that stat is really indicative of Philadelphia and then being able to impose their will on teams on the offensive side of the ball, not giving teams the opportunity to be on the field. And then when they are on the field, they turn into one-dimensional team that Eagles pass rush can get after it. That secondary obviously just kind of suffocates people. So again, I just think that, like, you know, we talked about at the beginning of the show, these are the 2 elite teams in the NFL. So some of these stats that we have, like, they're just indicative of them, you know, beating up on lesser competition. But this is one that, you know, it definitely respectably says, like, the Philadelphia defense is about that life, and they are not afraid of one Patrick Mahomes III.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely going to be something to definitely keep our eyes peeled on, for sure. On how it goes. The Eagles have allowed 11th fewest yards per game to receivers. So we just talked about these corners, been brilliant all year. The 2, you know, like I said, they stole these rookie corners. They stole them. They stole them. Definitely stole them. It was a heist.
They sure did. Yeah. Cooper DeJean, I think people just had, like, people had questions about his athleticism and would it translate to the NFL. And then, you know, man, like, don't get me going on a tirade. There's a handful of teams that every year they look at the film and say, you know what, this guy was actually really good in college. All right, like, let's give it a shot. And I know some of that obviously has to do with scheme and things like that, and situations, right? Put them in the right place. And Philadelphia has just been, you know, over the last 5 to 8 years, man, they've just been brilliant in terms of just like, hey, this is the player. Let's take him. Let's bring it in. And they put themselves in that situation, whether it's through draft capital and the current roster or whatever. They can take those chances. And this looks like another one of those chances that they took. And, you know, this guy is really, really good, man.
Nah, him and Quinyon Mitchell, like, really, I had those guys 1 and 2 on my, you know, corners list when doing the draft overview. And I just didn't understand how both these guys went to the same team.
Yeah,
they went to the same team. I didn't understand it. But that's where I knew, I was like, you know, that if I think that based on the year prior, the Eagles defense, like, you know, got picked apart so much to the point they had one of the most embarrassing losses probably in recent memory to the Bucs the year prior. In the playoffs, the wild card round. And, you know, again, like, addressing that to how they did it in a smooth way, like, I wouldn't, you know, did you expect them to go to the Super Bowl? I definitely had a feeling of they could definitely reach it because of how the NFC went. But who knew that the Vikings and the Lions would have that many wins this year?
The Lions, you could say that. The Vikings, no.
The Vikings, no. Especially with how we entered the year. Like, what?
Yeah. No, like, just talking about, like, you know, as you're talking about, you know, these corners, like, one of the things that they have done an outstanding job at, this Philadelphia secondary, is they've done a great job as well, like, against wide receivers in the slot. You know, that's one of the things they've done a really good job at. They did a really good job a couple weeks ago on Terry McLaurin. minus the big play that he had. Like they did a really good job, against him, slowing down Jaden Daniels, which there hadn't been too many people that had been able to slow him down. So again, like we continue to, to gush over the secondary here, and rightfully so. Which again, man, like, it's going to be tough sledding for Patrick Mahomes today. But just because it's tough sledding doesn't mean that, like, points aren't going to be scored or the job's not going to get done. It's just going to be tough sledding. It's going to potentially look really hard for him here against these guys, based off of what we've seen. Or, as I talked about, this is the biggest stage in the NFL right now, and you got a couple of rookies out there on the corners, and that could get kind of shaky out there, man.
Totally. So I mean, like I said, this all leads to needing a splash play for the Chiefs early on in this game, because if they don't get that splash play early on in this game, I feel like the Eagles may have an opportunity to steal this Super Bowl, in my opinion. So matchups to go over, matchups to watch for me will be a couple of things. Like, could the Eagles defense will need to take advantage of Jawan Taylor. Nolan Smith taking on Jawan Taylor is one of my matchups to look over. Jawan Taylor has been awful when it comes to PFF. PFF ranks him at a 62nd tackle out of 81 qualified in terms of ranking. So, like I said before, the Chiefs offensive line has mixed and matched all year long. Jawan Taylor constantly gets penalized. But Nolan Smith, like we all know, he's a fantastic rusher. Like he is able to, him, Jalen Carter, one-on-ones. It's gonna be a long day for them if that happens. So I'll be interested to see how that matchup goes as I'm watching this game.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, obviously, like we've talked about it, or at least I've talked about it for sure. It's just Kansas City in the slot and these tight ends. Like, I'll keep going back to it. Like, I think that ultimately that's, for me, that's what's going to dictate success here in this game, is that right there. And then you're talking about, the Chiefs and their offensive line as well. Like, you also have the Eagles. The Eagles have obviously, they got some, some things going on up front as well, where they've had to kind of mix and match some parts around. And the thing that is really unique about that is on the other side, Chris Jones, you hear him talk about it a lot on the broadcast, just having the ability to pick and choose where he wants to go eat at. And I think, like, it's the Troy Polamalu effect, where, you call the play, Troy just does what Troy does. And it's the same thing with Chris Jones, where he just finds the opportunity. So I think that'll be, that's something interesting, I think, to see is that. And then, you talked about the Chiefs linebackers, man. One thing that the Chiefs linebackers are is that they're fast. It's a fast group. They're an athletic group.
Yep.
So
sure.
You know what I mean? They are, like, they definitely are. Not to say that, like, I think that's going to slow Saquon down today, but I just think, like, it's another added element that, like, you don't have to get creative in how you defend the run game, right? Like, it's just, hey, this group is here and this is what they do. And we've seen instances where, I'm going to say this with a grain of salt, where Saquon has been slowed down to 92 yards or, an 86-yard performance, right? Like, he has been slowed down a couple of times this year. But, like, we all know, man, like, if he starts getting 130, 140, like, it's over. Like, you don't stand like you don't stand a chance when that starts to happen. So there's that place. And then also too, man, like, just to call out there's a couple of guys, like, for me, like, I'm interested in today. Hollywood Brown, you keep talking about the splash plays, right? Hollywood Brown has had the second highest rate share for the Chiefs since he's came back, second highest snap percentage at the wide receiver spot. So Hollywood Brown, you keep referencing it. Hollywood Brown is going to be the guy. Like, he's going to be the guy. And it might not necessarily be, a reception. It might be a pass interference play, right? To bring the ball, down the field. So I think for me, like, that's one of the things that I'm looking at is that. And Xavier Worthy has been really, really good as well for the Kansas City Chiefs over the last, 6 or 7 games with 5+ catches in those games. But again, the Eagles have done a really good job. So for me, I think it's Hollywood Brown is the guy that I'm looking at today. for me to be one of the matchups to watch for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense as well. Another thing I wanted to get into was it's more this is a little skewed in my opinion, but it's got to be mentioned. Patrick Mahomes undefeated against Vic Fangio teams.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those 6 Broncos teams that he was a part of, those and a couple of those Miami teams when he was the defensive coordinator for them. But that's something I wanted to bring up because it was like, Mahomes didn't go crazy in those games. In the 8 games that, he played against Fangio as either a coordinator or head coach, 64% completion percentage, 1,835 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on a 95.9 passer rating, which is technically a little under his career passer rating of 102. Something that had to be mentioned because it's, I think if he went for that little in terms of those matchups, again, some of those were the Broncos where they weren't that good.
Yeah, but division games, division games, division games, a little bit different.
Totally. I think another thing we have to look out for in this matchup is, like you talked about, the slot matchups. Xavier Worthy versus Cooper DeJean, in my opinion, is a matchup where, because Worthy has been hot this playoff run, I feel like they figured out how to utilize him in ways where, not gadgetly, but also just like being able to use him as a Swiss Army knife, slots, getting him down deep, handoff end arounds, just ways to use a Swiss Army knife player. And that does open things up for this Chiefs offense when he has one of those plays. So I think with Cooper DeJean, he has to keep on his success. Worthy in this playoff run has lined up in the slot 49% of the snaps this so far. And, motion wise, they've used Worthy 33% of the time in the playoffs versus 18% in regular season. So, I mean, look, I think this will be something I need to keep watch for as well, because DeJean has been solid all year. If Worthy finds an opportunity to get that splash play on him, this, like we talked about, could open things up a lot for this Kansas City team. Was there anything else you wanted to go over for matchups?
Nope.
Okay. One more thing. It's obvious. It's obvious, but Travis Kelce taking on these Eagles safeties. According to Next Gen Stats, Kelce leads all NFL players in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns on scramble plays since 2018. That's something that, and then obviously last week the game got out of hand, but Zach Ertz went ham on his former team. He went ham.
And Tyler Higbee the week before that. And Tyler Higbee the week before that, man.
So 11 catches for 104 yards, Zach Ertz. So yeah, look, I mean, we talked about Travis Kelce before. Obviously, a little old timer now. He's 35. But they always save the best for last when it comes to Kelce, and these are the moments that he looks to shine. So I mean, look, I know he didn't have the best game against the Bills, but before that, he had over 100 yards receiving against the Texans. So I mean, look, Travis Kelce has to play a big role in this matchup for the Chiefs to have an opportunity to win. Just that simple. I think another thing is, I talked about this before. Free flow, man. Like Mahomes and Kelce, when they're in the zone and they're free flowing on you, it becomes tough to stop. And this also goes back to their matchup a couple of years ago, where that same thing happened, where it don't even really have to be a play call they call. It's just, I tell you where to go. I know there's the defense, the soft spot where the defense is going to be, and you're just going to be there, and that's it. Little curl, little slant pattern, you know what I'm saying? Little 9 round in the middle of the field. Like, there's a lot of things that, when they free flow like this, it becomes really tough, because the only way you're able to stop that is to get some pressure. And that's where Vic Fangio may have to dial up a blitz here and there to get off that momentum and tempo, that if they start doing that in this game, which is not going to say it's predictable, but it's possible that can happen. Any other matchups?
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. My counter or my add-on to that right there will go back to, again, like what we seem to keep, a reoccurring thing we seem to keep landing on is those receivers on the outside, right? Like when you're playing Kansas City, like the thing you're gonna have to do is like teams are intentionally, and that this is obviously no secret, they've been intentionally trying to slow down Travis Kelce, right? Yeah. So if you're doing that, then now, like just like we talked about AJ Brown and Devontae Smith on the other side being one-on-one, now you have the same thing with these two speedsters because Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown both can still fly. So now you have that right there. And now is this an opportunity for guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and DeAndre Hopkins, right? To get open and make a couple plays to move the chains, not to break away, because none of those guys are running away from anybody, but right, just to kind of have some respect on those guys, right? Because they can still get open. So that's kind of what I think about, as you mentioned, like the Travis Kelce piece, and just the free-flowing aspect of things, because like everybody is really well aware that is going to happen. But again, man, like I'm the more we talk about it, man, the more I'm starting to say like youth a whole lot on the defensive side of the ball. Youth. And I think we've seen like in these spots, man, sometimes that can be nerves are a thing. Not that either one of us have ever played in a Super Bowl. The closest thing we've come to a Super Bowl is maybe going live here. But but yeah, man, I mean, like
I've covered a playoff game before, but it wasn't a Super Bowl. So
yeah, I've been under the covers for a playoff game, so I got bucket list. I got some things to do. But yeah, man, like that's one of the things. Like like I said, for me, I just keep thinking about is that right there, those two guys.
Makes sense. Next, we're going to the prop plays. So actually, first, little fun thing going on here. See it on FanDuel. Kick of Destiny. Kick of Destiny. The Mannings are going one-on-one. Go figure. In a kick of Destiny going on. It's like a little free play going on at FanDuel. We've seen Gronk do this a couple of times, obviously. Who do you got? Eli or Peyton?
Man, what kind of question is that? What kind of question is that? You already know what time it is. Shout out UTGB Ho, baby. Let's go, Peyton. What you talking about? Who am I rolling with? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Oh boy. I'm going with the guy that's a little bit more clutch, Eli Manning. Remember, he had to get his rings the hard way.
Oh, he had to get his rings
the hard way.
Right.
The very hard way.
Right. Because right. He had to get him the hard way. Okay.
He did.
Yeah. Listen, I'm
not sure if you're agreeing or ready for a counter.
I'm not knocking. I'm not knocking Eli Manning. I'm just going to simply preface it by saying this. That is the reason why he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer.
That's fine. So I didn't think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. I do think he's a Hall of Famer. He definitely deserves to get in at some point. The way he won those rings, that gives it enough for me. And the thing is, Eli Manning was a great bill of health. I don't think he even missed a game.
The only start that he missed was when they benched him. But this is the wrong argument for me. Yeah, for me. This is the wrong argument.
It's the wrong argument for you.
It's like because like this is what this path leads to. It leads to you going Peyton or Eli. Obviously Peyton. And then now we're starting to talk about Eli Manning as a quarterback. And I'm naturally easily going to say he wasn't even the best quarterback in that draft class.
No,
because of Big Ben. So like,
no, I'm saying I think we can meet in the middle on this. I think Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer, not from a so-called statistical point of view, but because of how clutch he was. And the way he won rings due to how the Giants, came about. Because remember, both those, again, it's something to talk about when a guy that we call maybe average, maybe above average sometimes in Eli Manning, takes his game to a totally different level when it comes to when the games matter most. So that's the only thing I would say. I think from a regular season standpoint, if we're judging just regular season, like, look, Eli Manning tossed interceptions like it was nobody's business sometimes. But I will say, though, that he deserves to be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
I don't even know. We kind of ended up talking about this at work. Welcome to the fantasy football show where we get off track and just start talking about football shit.
Well, every once in a while.
Every now and then, like it just happens.
We're topic. We're talking about the Mannings.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Like it's cool. No, like I think for Eli, I think and again, I don't ever like to be the ifs and buts guy. I don't ever like to be that guy because I'm a very factual guy, and if it happened, it happened. But I do truly believe that if that wasn't Tom Brady in those Super Bowls, I don't think people would look at Eli Manning the same way if the New York Giants had won those Super Bowls. I think it carries more weight that he was able to beat Tom Brady in those Super Bowls, and that's the needle mover to get him into the Super Bowl, is that right there. But there's obviously a lot of quarterbacks who have won Super Bowls that are not Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And the reason why that they're in the Hall of Fame is because of what they did in the regular season or whatever regular season accolades they had. I think that's just my opinion, like on Eli Manning. Can I see a world where he does? Yeah. Am I saying that he is a Hall of Famer? I mean, he's going to get in, but like, I'm not somebody that's like definitively, if you ask me black and white, is he a Hall of Fame quarterback, for me to be like, yeah, he is. That's just kind of my take on it, man.
That's fair. I mean, it's fair. I'm not gonna be like, you're wrong, or I don't get it, this, that, or third. It's not like, for me, it's not so definitive as in like, like first ballot Hall of Famer. I'll be like, no, like, let's face facts. So like, it's like you said, he played against Brady both times in the Super Bowl, then beat him both times in the Super Bowl, and that carries a lot of weight because look what happened with Brady's career. So there's that. But I do think, like I said, it's the clutch gene in my opinion when it comes to the playoffs. Like that's where, again, like your boy Ben Roethlisberger was decent. But there were still times where, even him, and it's like talk about the same draft class, talk about him, Rivers, talking about Manning, like Rivers, like he had the teams that finished 14 wins.
Oh, he probably had some of the best. He probably had some of the best rosters.
So early bounce. He had one of the best running backs of all time, Damian Tomlinson. So that's where again, like it. And then you look at Eli Manning's rosters, and you're like, who? Other than Plexico Burris, receiver, like
Plexico Burris, Tiki Barber, Brandon Jacobs. I don't know. No, Jeremy.
Tiki's still mad about that. Think Tiki's still mad about not getting that ring?
Gotta be. But like also too, like they had a hell of a defense. But anyway, man, like that's not to take anything away from from Eli Manning, man. I think like again, whatever.
Okay, you got to pay it. So the rules of it is each of them are going to attempt a 25-yard field goal attempt. If whoever makes it first wins it. If after the first round, if after they each kicked, they both miss, they go into deciding who's a winner after 3 rounds. If neither of them makes an attempt, whoever was closest to the center in distance wins. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, like just wanted to bring that up because something that's interesting besides like the other things that are going on. To the props we go. We have a nice slate of props here for everyone here. So a couple of them involve the same player. Talking about Jalen Hurts. Over 100, over 211 passing yards and over 300. Wow. 36.5 rushing yards. The overs on both for Jalen Hurts. 300 passing yards in the last Super Bowl he played in. He had 70 yards rushing in that Super Bowl as well. In order for the Eagles to really, make a statement and to win this game, Jalen Hurts he's going to have to be a great passer and a great runner in this one to keep Chiefs defense off on kilter. So I think the 211 is way too low. I think the line to me should be 259 yards passing. So this 211 should be easy. The only way it doesn't get there as if really like, the Eagles like have run the football constantly like they've done all year. And Barkley, the opposite would be Barkley over his 100, whatever right now in line. I think it was like 104 or 106, whatever, his rushing line. But I think Jalen Hurts is going to break both of these. I'm just going to take those because the Eagles are going to have to find a way to offensively still keep Patrick Mahomes in distance along with time possession. So these should both work out for Jalen Hurts. So JP Ryan, over 7.5 receiving yards. He's done this in 15 of the last 16 games. So yeah, we'll pretty much go with this. Should be an opportunity where the Chiefs are either in neutral throwing position or in a spot where they're throwing from behind, and P. Ryan will be coming more of those receiving backs. We didn't talk about it really, but the Chiefs running game is something that, they need to still somewhat establish. But I don't know about the lines per se. Like I think Kareem Hunt was a 45.5 rushing yards.
Yes.
And Pacheco was like 22 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
no, I got you.
So I mean they both make sense because those lines are too low. But
Pacheco's at 22 and change. And Kareem Hunt's at 43.5. That's on DraftKings.
All right.
As far as rushing yards.
Hold on, folks. We have breaking news.
Why you always the one breaking the news? Always breaking news, man. You always breaking news. Always breaking news.
We have breaking news. According to Adam Scheffler, signs point to Aaron Rodgers not returning to the New York Jets next season. Also, another note: the Raiders are a team to watch for Sam Darnold, according to Adam Scheffler.
Yeah, I knew that one. Aaron Rodgers, the guy that, Aaron Rodgers. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Exactly.
Just going to leave it at that.
Just get this bum out of town. I mean,
Jesus. Get this bum out of town.
Get this bum out of town. Travis Kelce over 59.5 receiving yards. Like we talked about, Travis Kelce, this is this is the game. The Super Bowl, biggest spot of the year. He can't let us down now. He can't let us down now. I know. The only way it doesn't hit is that, the Eagles found a way to, beat them by 14 points. And maybe it still gets there, but
I look at it the other way. The only way it doesn't get there is if the Chiefs are, if they're up. That's the only way. That's the way I look at it. Because I swear I feel like this is just going to be a classic game of keep away.
It is. Yeah, it's all definitely. It could definitely feel like that. Last one, home cooking. Devontae Smith. Over 4.5 receptions, over 52.5 receiving yards. This is my, stamp of approval prop of the day. Loving Devontae Smith because, when you're playing guys that are, I would say you're going to have a lot of, you should have opportunities to have one-on-one opportunities in this matchup. Trent McDuffie going to be playing A.J. Brown. This should be an opportunity for Devontae Smith to, soar his wings, so to speak.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I know you did. Look, I think Jalen Watson has really come along. He didn't play as much during the regular season, but really came on last 6 or so games for the Chiefs. This could be a little bit, a tit for tat matchup because Watson out of the corner for PFF, he's a 21st out of 116 corners. So he's really good. But I will say if the matchups change and we get Sharari Connor, who is not the best. He ranks 51st in PFF when it comes to being a corner. So people are taking longest reception for Devontae Smith, but I think you could take the catches and or the receiving yards. I like both of them. The reason why I say it's home cooking is because Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts are having opportunities to win not only a national championship, but also a pro football championship once again. In the spot where Devontae Smith played his high school.
I was about to say, he's from the NO.
His high school championship game where he lost. So he has an opportunity to not only win when it comes to Super Bowl, but avenge what happened to him maybe 15 years ago. Something like that. 9 years ago, something like that. But yeah, I like that prop when it comes to Devontae Smith. AJ Brown, I'm sure, can get there as well. But I definitely like Devontae Smith because we talked about the slot matchups, talked about the tight ends already. So this works right into the matchups that we talked about earlier. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I like the Smith one, and the only thing I was thinking, I was just gonna say something funny. I was just gonna be like, "Damn, homie, in high school you was the man, homie."
hey yo, yeah. So John, I got one more question to ask.
Yeah.
Who you got, man? Who you got for the big game?
I'm taking the Chiefs, man. We sat here.
Son of a bitch.
Hey man, listen, the ingredients that I've been cooking with over here this morning makes me say the Chiefs, and I'll kind of give you some things like I'm kind of digging, obviously, is the Chiefs. I like them in this spot. We keep talking about things, and the more we keep talking about things, is if. Well, unless Patrick Mahomes pulls a hammy in pregame warm-up.
Oh, God.
I think the Kansas City Chiefs are looking at a three-peat. I believe the line was like, what, 40? Was it like 46 or 48?
48 and a half over under.
Yeah. So I got this one. I'll give you 51. Yeah, 48. Okay, 48 and a half. So I got 51 for the over, is what I got. And I got the Chiefs continuing to pull out the close ones, 27-24. That's what I got here today. And I think, discussed for everyone else out here, your Super Bowl MVP is none other than one Patrick Mahomes III, just to make everybody disgusted with the NFL. I think that is what it is. I think this is Saquon Barkley doesn't crack 100 today. I'm just giving you all my hot takes here. Saquon Barkley doesn't crack 100 yards rushing today. I think he might crack 100 total yards, but he's not going to get there on the ground in that fashion. Dallas Goedert, I'm back. He's one of my props. I know you're the prop guy, but I do like Dallas Goedert today.
What's his line? 51 and a half receiving
yards? Let's see here.
Catches, what you got?
Let's see here. Receiving yards for one. Dallas Goedert is 51 and a half.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that for Mr. Dallas Goedert. And then I'm also going to be a sucker as well. So I'll just kind of preface it by saying that. Yeah, that's right, baby. That's right. I'm in my kitchen. That's right. I'm in my kitchen. I'm cooking.
He's taking Kenneth Gainwell.
Yep. That's one.
Oh, really?
Listen, there are three players. There are three players. You're laughing,
that was purely speculation.
No, it's purely speculation. We hadn't even talked about it. No. But I think there's something like I want you to think about. There are three players, all on the Eagles, and they all have a prop that combined between the three of them is 5 yards. Grant Calcaterra, Kenny Gainwell, and Johan Dotson.
Johan Watson. Yeah.
And if the more that we sit here and talk about, the Chiefs' struggles in the slot, those are all three players who can line up in the slot in some capacity.
Even Gainwell?
You flex him out, or, hey, you get a little motion, you get him right there in the slot. There you go, right? Like, he's not a stationary back. I think we know he's more of a back that can catch a pass. Obviously, he can run the ball, obviously. But for what? For a half a yard, bro? A half a yard? A yard? For as much as we love Saquon, and we love Saquon.
Man needs a breather.
Right. Like, so I think that's one that, like, I look at and I'm like, okay. Am I saying all three? I'm going to parlay all three of those? No, but I think it's definitely something to think about when you look at that. What?
That'll be degenerate status, right?
Oh, listen, it would be a degenerate status. And then the other one I think we have to look at that I like as well is I like Jalen Hurts over 1.5 touchdowns, passing touchdowns today. I like that. So those are a couple of my plays. And then the one that I think is going to just completely like probably DraftKings and MGM and every sports book in America is probably going to cash in. I told you about this one earlier, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen just because of namesake. But like people staring down the barrel of that DeAndre Hopkins 1.5 reception prop.
He's plus money now in
Yeah.
DraftKings.
Bro,
money.
Listen.
Plus money.
Listen to D-Hop is plus money. The reception is plus money. The 3 guys that I gave you earlier, that is plus money, right? So like there are definitely
it's just dirty.
it feels dirty. It feels dirty. Really, but how many times in Super Bowls, right? You know, we were just talking about Eli Manning, the Mario Manninghams of the world, the David Tyrees of the world, right? Yeah, like it. Like, call me a psychopath, call me a degenerate psychopath. But like, call me what it is, and I will answer the phone or I will answer your DMs. But like, I think those are a couple of places that I will probably look to get to in some capacity. And there was one more that I had that was really gross because I know you love that. I'd say, no, it's not up there anymore, but there was one.
So on DraftKings, how is Juju Smith-Schuster minus 148 for two receptions?
Because he's actually outsnapped D-Hop over the last, I think, 3 or 4 games. Like I was looking at that. I obviously spent a little bit of time like looking into it, but like he's been out snapping D-Hop, which is crazy. Well, I shouldn't say it's crazy because obviously it's working, but like he's been out snapping D-Hop. So he's somebody that like I have on like a separate list, to hit the 2 reception mark because again, Patrick Mahomes is going to spread the ball around. So, yeah, man, crazy times right now. Crazy times.
Yeah, totally.
And now let me ask you this question: other than who you got in the game,
sure,
who's your Super Bowl MVP?
Yeah, it's gotta be Mahomes.
Yeah,
it's gotta be Mahomes. Yeah. It's gotta be Mahomes. So that's why I'm going to Chiefs, baby. Team Red. Just like my team, Team Red. Coaching 4th and 5th grade basketball. But no, Chiefs. It's the thing that most people don't want. It's the thing most people don't want. But honestly, like the Chiefs just find ways to win all the time. This goes back to Chiefs. Chiefs are winners of 17 straight 1-score games. We'll go with that. Another thing is that Mahomes and Kelsey, man, like they are just a duo that you never count out ever in terms of when they play. You can, I know they haven't looked as explosive this season when it comes to game by game. There's a couple of times they almost lost to the Panthers. They've been in, they almost lost to the Broncos. Like, there have been some weird bumps for the Chiefs this year when it comes to that. Injuries, stuff like that. Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey just keep things humming. They just do. And you got to respect that grit. You got to respect that tenacity. As a unit, as a team, like they just find ways to get the job done. I think that they know the 3-peat is right there. They know that they're on the cusp of history, and it would just feel wrong if they fell short in this one. I do like the Eagles as well. So I'm going to enjoy the Super Bowl because I've loved. Well, we've watched, I think, a good amount of Eagles games this year because of Barkley.
Yeah, absolutely.
Us screaming Barkley.
Yeah. And Jalen Hurts on the low. Jalen Hurts on the low.
Me texting you, Barkley.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? 66-yard run.
Gone. He gone.
But I think when it comes to this Chiefs potential dynasty, I think we'll have questions in terms of, if and when they win this, what is the legacy behind it, right? Is this last Travis Kelce game? If they win, what happens to Mahomes' legacy consistently? And then, people will always compare, him to Brady and stuff, which I don't think exactly is fair. But I do think that the Chiefs winning this game like I said, that them losing this game would just feel wrong. On the cusp of history, and I'm sure people are definitely rooting against the Chiefs today.
There's a lot of
You
money
know,
going on the Eagles, man, just for that reason.
just for that reason, right?
Yeah.
But no, I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm taking the the -1.5. Taking the over, like you said. I just think that we're in for a competitive matchup. Like I said before, I've said this in the past, but I really thought last year was the Chiefs like going to be the year they weren't going to win it.
Yeah.
Really thought that was going to happen last year, where things just did not look good. In general, they were just not looking like a great unit. And then again, it's like they just turn it on. They just turn it on. So taking the Chiefs, and there's that. Would I be mad that the Eagles won? No, because I do like we love Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Like they've been here before too. So this is gonna be a great game, and looking forward to how it all shakes down.
Word.
Any final thoughts for everyone, Johnny?
Yeah, actually, not Super Bowl related. I got to get ready to make my plug here, man. Was it Wednesday? Yeah, man, you know I do. Man, shout out Fantasy Cares and Scott Fish. Won a drawing on I think it was Wednesday or Thursday night. Got a new Xbox. The one and only GOAT himself, Mr. Andrew Cooper.
Yeah, my birthday's coming up.
Hits me up to let me know that I had won. I wasn't watching the stream. I typically just hop in and, see what they're talking about. But definitely just want to take a moment, man, to shout out Coop for, hit me up and let me know. Definitely want to shout out Fantasy Cares, Scott Fish and that crew for obviously for the giveaway and all the amazing things that they do for everybody and everything. So definitely want to shout that out for sure. And without going too far into the bag, man, please continue to keep watching. Because we got some new ingredients we're going to be using to cook here pretty soon. So please keep watching, man.
Well, they're not ready for that. They're not ready for that.
No.
We got final thoughts continued. We have some things up our sleeves, when it comes to new and improved, and literally just working on just consistently being better, not only as a product but a brand. And stay tuned because we're gonna have some of that upcoming your way. So that being said, probably be our last show for a little bit. Like I said, stay tuned because we'll have some things coming up that you'll want to be a part of. But that being said, Johnny, for myself, we out. Good luck to everyone when it comes to their prop plays and watching the game, and stay safe out there. Peace.